Welcome to What in the Shibal with Susie and Ed.
We're just two Asian Americans talking shit about shit. Oh, just drop my microphone onto the dog. Hi, Ed. How are you? Should we do that again?
Yeah.
Okay.
How
you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. This week has been just... actually, no. Something crazy happened this week. Not crazy, but... So, I'm just going to open...
I'll be the judge of that.
Open it up. So, I'm sitting in my house the other day, and I'm doing something, the window's open, and I hear this, like, crash, and then a scream, like... Oh my God. I was like, what the fuck is that? So I open my blinds and I look out the window and I see these four like young boys, like around like 12, 13 years old. Three of them are standing and one of them is on the ground. And I was like, oh fuck, what the fuck happened? And I run out there. I was like, what happened? Are you okay? And he's like, I think like he got hit by a car or something. I guess he was on a skateboard, hit a rock, went flying and hit his shoulder into the curb. And I was like, don't move. Like, you know, I'm going to call an ambulance. He's like, call my mom. I was like, okay, I'll call your mom. So I call his mom. And I was like, hi, my name's Susie. I don't want you to panic, but your son has fallen outside of my house and I'm going to call an ambulance. And she's like, oh my God, is he okay? I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to call an ambulance, but you wanted me to call you first. And I was like, oh, boys, they always need their mom. And, she's like, can he move? And I was like, I don't recommend it. I'm not a doctor, but I just know that you're not supposed to move somebody. Just then, this guy pulls up.
Where is this going?
Well, I mean, this is just a normal story. This guy pulls up. He's like, oh, is he okay? I'm like, no, he's not okay. Like, he's on the fucking ground. I'm like.
We're just hurtling around him for no reason.
So he like runs to his car. And I think like, what's he doing? He grabs this like huge blanket. He's like, let's put him under the blanket. I'm like, don't move him. He's like, can you move? I was like, I've told you 6 times that this child cannot move. Don't fucking touch him. He's like, and I know he's just trying to help, but I'm like, you're getting in the way. Leave him alone. Yeah. I'm calling an ambulance. Like, calm the fuck down. I was like, I know you want to help, but this is really like, you're complicating things. So then he takes this blanket. I mean, it's like folded up and it's like this thick, puts it on top of the kid. He's like, ow. I was like, oh my God, stop touching him. So I'm like getting upset. And then just then one of the kids' moms shows up and she kind of like takes over because she knows these kids. I don't know them at all. And it's like fine. And the guy like walks away and like whatever. Then like the fire department comes first because there's a firehouse just down the street. And they come out and they're all like talking and whatever. And the kid's like super calm. And I'm like, oh my God, like, are you okay?
That's injured?
Yeah. He's like so calm. And I'm like, are you cold? Like, can you feel your fingertips? Because it was like dusk. He's like, I'm a little cold. I'm like, okay, let's just get like a light sweatshirt. We like, you know, put the sweatshirt on him or whatever. And then the ambulance comes and then, you know, they like take him away. Like, this is just not like that dramatic. The whole time my 9-year-old is standing out there, like watching this go on. I'm like, why don't you go in the house? She's like, no, I want to watch and see what they do. I want to see what happens. I'm like, but you look really freaked out. And she's like, no, but I want to make sure he's okay. And I'm like, oh, you're so sweet. You know her. She's just like, I'm just like really worried about him. I'm like, okay. Just stand off to the side and don't. Every time I look at her, she's like 1 inch closer. And I'm like, back up. And she's like, okay, but I'm just like really worried. I'm like, but she like cannot take like stressful situations. So she like put herself in there because she's like, I have to like be, you know, strong because he needs help and I have to be supportive. I don't even know. And so then, you know, they leave and like whatever. And I was like, why were you so adamant about standing there? And she's just like, I just felt like it was my job to make sure that he was okay. And like, I just wanted to make sure that like, you know, that he knew that there were people there to support and help him. And I was like, you're so sweet. Like that's
fast forward to her being a doctor.
That's kind of what I was like, maybe, or like, you know, maybe like something to that
I was
effect.
at first going to say like an EMT, but then you were like stressful situations like not
No. I mean, but you know, being like a doctor, I'm sure is very stressful too.
It's very stressful.
And so then I called the mom because I had her number, or I texted her because I had her number in my phone. I was like, hey, I was just checking just to see. And I'm thinking like by his reaction, like he's probably like fine. Maybe he just like sprained his shoulder. Nope. Turns out he took his clavicle right here, snapped it in half. Yeah. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you know, it's a full, complete break. And I was like, oh my. Well, at
least it sounds like it was a clean break.
God, I mean, is that better? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, considering like his reaction, like his initial reaction was like, ow, fuck. But I was like, okay, like that makes sense. But, you know, to know that he had like a full on broken bone and that he like didn't cry or anything. I was like, maybe he was just in shock or whatever. But the thing that I wanted to talk about was his 3 friends. These 3 like young boys, it turns out they're all like between 12 and 13. They were amazing. They were amazing. I don't have boys, but like I think little boys are like little fucking assholes. They were
Truth.
incredible. They're like, hey, buddy, we're here for you. Tell us, if you need anything, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain? Is it like a 1 or like a 10? Or like if it's a 6, it was a 6 a little bit while ago. What is it worse now? They were so incredible. And I was like, thank you, universe, for restoring my faith in like humanity just a little bit, especially when it comes to like young boys. Like they were so like responsive and so like, I don't know, like supportive, and they weren't like macho, like, oh, you're being a little bitch or like whatever, like what you expect young boys to be. And I was like, I don't know if it was these particular boys, but I was like, you guys are good friends. I don't want to tell your mom. And so I texted her, I was like, just PS, I just wanted you to know that your son has really good friends. And they were all really, really great during a very stressful situation. She's like, oh my God, that's so nice to say. I was like, I just want to put it out there because I was really proud of them. And I don't even know them.
Yeah. I know a lot of parenting is like worrying about your kid and their friends. Like you don't have to worry about these three.
Yeah. They were really great. They were really, really great. So it also, having girls to know that their cohorts, their peer group, of the opposite sex were respectful and good.
Decent human beings.
Yeah. I was like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better about the world I'm sending my daughters off into. I know. I was like, that was really stressful. My other
for those
daughter
of
was
you
like,
who've never skateboarded before, rocks on the road.
Death. Yeah.
Nemesis.
And I was like, so next time you guys go skateboarding, just full suit of armor. So what the fuck? Like you're just hurling your body into space. It was crazy. But yeah, that was the highlight. Or not highlight, but that was one of the most exciting things of my week.
What were you saying about your daughters?
What?
What were you saying about your daughters?
Oh, my older daughter, she stayed in the house the whole time because, ew, boys. They were all three like really cute, like skater boys. I think she was just like,
oh, who are also like in her
exact age range.
Yeah.
And she was just like, I'm not coming out there. I was like, she's so shy. I was like, you're so weird. Oh, but the funny thing is,
she's half you.
I know. My sister, she was outside and then she saw us and she's like, what's going on? So she walks up because you guys know she like lives 3 houses away from me, and she's holding a glass of wine. I was like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, get back in your house, you drunk. And she's like, what's the problem? And then the fire department comes.
She's like, it's dusk. You're like, yeah, but it's daylight saving, so it's only 3:30.
And then the fire department comes and they're like, oh, starting early, like just giving her a hard time. And then the cops showed up and she's still holding wine. I'm like, you're drinking in public. And then she goes in her house, she comes out with a mug. I was like, excuse me, officer, she's drinking wine. I think they were like totally fine with her. They're like, ma'am. She's like, sorry. But like, I was like, take her away. Public intoxication. I was like, anyway. So that was my week. Any highlights for you?
That's really funny. Yeah, a couple highlights.
Wait, I want the dog.
I know he's
Wake
laying
him up.
across me.
His legs are just like hanging off the back.
You guys can't see it, but he's
Archie, come here. Come sleep here. He's so asleep. You get to stay with him all the time. Okay. Good night. Okay. Yeah.
Well, one of an LA staple closed last week.
Oh my God. I saw that and I'm so sad that I wasn't able to go. The Dragon.
The Dragon.
That is
closed.
That's
like the restaurant that my mom and aunt would always take us to for, you guys want to go out to eat? Let's go get some jjajangmyeon tangseok.
See, ours was, you need glasses. We'll go to hit up Italy Optical and then we'll go across the street while we wait for your glasses and then we'll go back. That's
Italy.
Yeah. Why did they close? That's so sad.
Yeah, what ended up happening was...
Oh, just so, in case you don't know what that is. It's a Chinese-Korean restaurant. Korean-Chinese restaurant. Korean-Chinese? Chinese-Korean?
Chinese, I don't know. I had a hard time with that too.
Well, if it was Korean American, I'm Korean.
Too much thinking.
Okay.
It's Chinese inspired
Korean food.
But
no, it's Korean inspired Chinese food.
Yes, that's it.
See, so it
is Korean Chinese.
Yeah,
sure.
Korean Chinese. Yeah,
we're gonna stick with that.
It's so good.
It's Korean Chinese food, and even in Korea, it ended up happening because there were Chinese immigrants, so they would make foods just like they did in America that cater to the palate.
Right.
And so it ended up evolving over the years, and they are very similar dishes in Chinese as well, but the Korean versions are a little bit hearthier. Is that the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
It has more like vegetables and stuff in it than the Chinese version.
Chinese American food, you mean?
No, the jjajangmyeon, like jjajangmyeon, tangsiok, stuff like that. So
I'm so hungry right now. That sounds so good.
I know. And even at the Dragon restaurant, it's owned by a Chinese Korean person. A Chinese
Chinese person.
No. Chinese person who lived in Korea.
I see. Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, including if you ever went there, you know the guy that you see there all the time.
Yeah.
He seats you. He does the busing.
Yeah.
He does everything that's needed. He's the general manager. He's also Chinese Korean.
Oh, interesting.
So there's been multiple times throughout my childhood when I used to be like, I swear he just spoke Chinese.
Yeah.
But he's speaking Korean to me, so I must have just heard stuff without even thinking like, oh, right, he could be Chinese Korean, you know? And yeah, so what ended up happening was because of the rising cost of living in LA, they've been having a hard time replacing their head chef of over 30 years who's had debilitating
Why
wrist
didn't
pain.
they tell us? We could have done something about it.
I don't know. I would have
something saved the dragon.
Yeah, somehow.
Oh man, that makes me so sad. Those candy covered sweet potatoes that they give you at the end of your meal, those were so good.
So good.
Oh.
Everything was so good. And to be honest with you, I stopped going there like 2 years ago because like I went 2 or 3 times and the jjajangmyeon was like not as flavorful and it felt a little watered down. And I guess that was kind of part of the reason is that I think they try to like look around and then, but that's the thing is that like the guy that owns the place, I guess, who ended up buying it out from the original owners in like 2017, he owns other jjajangmyeon restaurants. He has one in Glendale, for instance. And he says in that kitchen, it's completely, the kitchen is run by Latinos.
Of course.
And he says that's completely fine because the majority of their patrons in Glendale aren't Korean. But at the Dragon, they're not even Korean. The majority of their patrons are Korean elders who expect that traditional flavor.
Yeah.
So it needs to be someone who was classically trained in Chinese Korean food.
Got it.
You know, and like they're having a hard time importing people? Recruiting? Thank you. That's odd because that's the job I used to have.
I was like, importing people?
Yeah. Ooh,
nope, we don't do that here.
Yeah. So they were having a hard time recruiting those people because the wage didn't justify the cost of living in LA.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then after a while, they were like, I guess we have to shut down.
Man, that's a huge
And then
bummer.
the saddest part is it's now turning into like a 6-story, 90-unit apartment.
No.
Yeah. So it's just like gentrification caused them to get out. And now gentrification is also the effect.
That's really sad. That's fucking depressing.
It really is depressing.
Great. Thanks. I was just talking about
Don't shoot the messenger.
Kids and busted collarbones, and now I'm hungry and sad.
Which is the worst combo.
The worst combination.
That is like the combo for overeating.
And my husband said he's going to bring home salads. I don't want a fucking salad now. I want depression food. I want fried chicken and jjampong.
My friend always used to say this thing. They're like, I'm sad because I'm fat. And I'm fat because I'm sad. You're like, that is the most relatable
so
thing
relatable.
in my life.
That's exactly true.
Yeah. Crap, what else happened this week?
Oh, something happened in my... Okay, so one more thing that happened is my husband took my kids to the mall. This is actually kind of scary. It actually was really upsetting.
Oh.
He took them to the mall to buy like socks or something.
You don't Amazon that anymore?
My kids have growing feet. We don't know what size they are.
Fair.
They both have outgrown my sock size. So I'm like, I don't know. And so they went to the food court to eat. And he told my 9-year-old to go sit at a table because it was, just wait for us. We're going to order the food. And I guess she was sitting there and a man came up to her and was like, hey, do you have $2? And she's like, I don't have $2. And she just like knows to like not engage with strangers. He's like, hey, how old are you?
No.
And yeah. And he tried to sit down with her.
Was her dad there?
He was like literally like ordering food. She's like 20, 30 feet away.
Yeah.
And just then, I guess security guards had been watching and grabbed him and were like, hey, you got to get out of here. He called me and he was like, hey, I got to tell you something that happened, at the mall. And he told me I was so upset. Like the combination of like rage and fear and like, I was like scared and I was so upset. I was instantly like, I balled up my fist and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like punch something, or if I'm gonna like cry, or I might cry punching something or punch something. And I was just like, I don't know how to feel.
Rage.
And my daughter, who that happened to, she was really upset for obvious reasons. But like, she's like, did I do something wrong? Like, what happened? Like, why?
Daughter?
Yeah. Yeah. And she's like, I don't understand. Like, what happened? Like, what did I do? And I was like, you did nothing wrong. There is no reason a grown man should ever come to you and engage in a conversation with you when you're by yourself and ask you these kinds of questions. You did nothing wrong. My older daughter, who's already a little bit apprehensive, she's just like a nervous kid. She's fucking freaked out. She is so freaked out. She's like, I don't want to go anywhere ever. I don't want to do anything ever. And like, I don't know what his intentions were. And I don't want to think about it. And I don't want to think about like what could have happened if those security guards hadn't swooped in. And I know that it was like a crowded mall and in all likelihood, nothing could have happened. But like the thought of my daughter being vulnerable in that way made me so upset. And I was so angry and I was so fucking scared. I was like debilitated. I was in my office just like hysterically crying because I was like, I couldn't do anything. I wasn't there. I wasn't, and just like that feeling of not being able to like protect my kid, even though my husband was there and she was fine. And like, I know it would have been fine, but like knowing that our kids are out there just vulnerable is such a sickening feeling when you know that other people's intentions are just bad. And it's just, it felt so like dirty and ugh,
Yeah.
So I guess I wasn't the only one to bring down the conversation today, but it was really upsetting. And I just like, it's scary. It's so scary. And like, she's such a like loving kid, she's such a loving, trusting kid. And number one, to know that now she's like less trusting, but number two, to know that like she's vulnerable because of that trusting, so it's like trustworthiness or like, trusting of other people.
Yeah, she has like she's very innocent.
She's so pure. We talk about it all the time. Mm-hmm. She's so innocent. She's so pure. And she's just like so loving. And she just thinks the best of people. And she wants the best for people. And to know that like she can't live in a world and be safe with that state of mind. And knowing that the world is already acting to take that away from her. It's really frustrating to me. And it really like hurts me to know that she can't be her authentic self and still survive in this world. And that's a really sad reality as her mother.
I think hearing you say that, I think also made me realize how my mom felt when I weaponized what happened to me in that argument. Because like, imagine then finding out that like someone who was supposed to be one of your family members is the person who you know what I mean? Right. So yeah.
Or it's like, I couldn't protect you. And now you're using that against me too.
Yeah.
That's tough.
That is tough.
And definitely something we're going to work out.
Yeah. Well,
but the vulnerability of children is just something that's been like, I guess, thematic now, especially the two stories that I've told this week. I'm like, oh God, physically they can get hurt at any point.
Yeah.
Emotionally, they can get hurt at any point. And it's like, I can only do so much. There's only so much I can do. It's like, there's only so much I can do to protect my kid and also not fucking traumatize her by trying to protect her. Yeah. The world is scary. The world is unsafe. You can't walk down the street and not almost die because you've taken a header into a curb, and you can't talk to that person because that person might kidnap you and sell you to somebody. But at the same time, be like, hey, the world is filled with tricky people, and we have to be careful of sneaky people, especially sneaky grown-ups.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, how we balance that, I just don't even know anymore.
Even when I was like at Disneyland, when I was there with like it was two grown dudes, I remember just being like constantly just being like, I have to be aware, like where I'm looking, like I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable or like, make anything assume, because it's just like the world is a really scary place. And like, that's weird you say that, because this person that I know on Facebook actually just posted the other day. He was like, I just randomly had this like memory come up. He's like, that overwhelmed me the other day. And he's like, I just all of a sudden remember when I was like 7 years old. He's like, I was playing outside my house. My mom was like standing right there. And he said this van pulled up and asked him for directions. And when he started walking up towards it, the door opened.
Nope.
And he said that he saw 3 other people in there tied up.
No.
And then I forget exactly what happened, but his like mom or someone or something called, not even about what he was doing, just to be like, hey, I need you to come help me with something. And he like turned around and he was just like, I didn't realize that I was going to get kidnapped.
Jesus Christ.
And then when people in the comments were like, oh my God, what did you do? But he was like, I was like 7. He's like, I didn't even know to tell anyone until like a month or 2 later, at which point it was too late to help those people. But yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. So that's been a theme in my life this week also. Protecting my kids, protecting other people's kids, protecting all kids. And that was something that one of the parents of one of the boys that wasn't hurt came to pick his son up. And he's like, thank you so much for being there. You really, helped a lot and whatever. And I was like, when you're a mom or a dad, you become every kid's mom or dad. You know what I mean? And I was just like, I'm always so vigilant when I like see kids who like don't have an adult around or whatever. I'm always so vigilant about like the people around them and like what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, cause I just know, and I have to hope that young boys grow up to be good men and good, people and good parents look out for kids outside of just their own. And like, we have to rely on, the good people in the world to make sure that the world stays as good as it can. Cause it increasingly gets just scarier and scarier for me and, I think every person, but particularly parents. The end.
Yeah. The world is
a vampire.
A vampire.
But anyway, we're starting a new exciting segment.
We are. Yes. Sorry, I had a brain fart. I was like, what is this segment?
I was like, hello? Are we not?
No, we're starting this really fun segment. We're starting a very interesting segment, which could be fun. We don't really know where it's going to go, but essentially it does have
the best journey, isn't it?
Yeah, but it does have a fun name, this segment. It is called Questions for Asian People by Non-Asian People.
Is that what it's called?
Is that what we're calling it? Questions for Asian people by non-Asian people, right?
Questions for Asian people that non-Asian people are sometimes too afraid to ask. Or something like that.
Questions for Asian people.
It's a working title.
By non-Asian people.
Do you hear that? Is that scary for you? That's Joey.
Yeah, every time Colt barks, Archie has learned the first thing to do is come run towards me. And he will just hide right under my feet.
You keep sliding off the back. It work. You can hear my girl dog barking right now. You're safe.
Say your girl dog?
My girl dog. My bitch. Non-Asian people ask wild questions.
Okay,
so
ready?
Ed and I have different questions. They're not the same. So we'll just kind of go one after the other, I guess.
Yeah, we're going to ask and then we're going to talk about the questions.
Yeah. You want to go first or should I?
No, you go first.
Do all white people look alike? To me, no. To my mom, kind of.
Sometimes.
So I have these 3 friends that I've had since junior high school, and they're all about between 6'2" and 6'5", like white guys. I don't know. They're just really tall.
Oh my gosh, they're really tall.
And they are Ryan, Chris, and Greg. And they all are white, light complected, between like light brown to blonde hair. And one of them was like hanging out at my house one day, and my mom met one of them. And then a different one, these are just my friends, just came over, and she's like, I was like, oh, Mom, this is Ryan. She's like, I met Ryan yesterday. I'm like, no, you met Greg yesterday. She's like, no. I was like, yeah. And then Chris came over and she's like, wait, his hair is a little bit darker, but he looks exactly the same. I'm like, they're not. And then when she sees the 3 of them together, she's like, what the fuck?
That's hilarious.
So to my mom, maybe. So like, I don't know. Like, I don't think that they all look the same, obviously.
Wait, sometimes I do, especially in movies.
Okay.
Like, for instance, I remember very specifically watching The Rock, like the movie The Rock with Nicolas Cage about Alcatraz.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Right,
and there
right.
was like a couple of elder white men in uniforms. And I remember the first couple times I watched them, I kept being like, wait, that's not the same person. Because when you're not really paying attention, or you're like kind
Or
of
you
like
have
trying to figure out
ADHD.
the story. And I think that's what it is that like when you live or like interact with a homogenous society, you haven't like trained or conditioned your brain or your eyes to, I think, sometimes differentiate between
Yes.
subtle differences. And I think that's sometimes what it is. I don't know. But either way, the answer is no.
No.
But for some people who maybe aren't used to differentiating.
Listen, I think it just takes a little effort.
Yes.
Right. Now that my mother has met them and knows them, she, of course, knows who is who. You know what I mean? It just took a little effort. Right. If you put forth the effort to differentiate people's, their nuances of their faces, facial structures, of course you can tell people apart.
Yeah.
It's whether or not you're willing to put the effort in.
Yeah. Unlike a movie where you can't put in that effort because people just flash across the screen and you're like,
You're trying to excuse it however you want.
You have to watch it a couple times, and that's the effort.
This next question is funny, but yours is first.
Wait, no. Do you all know Kung Fu?
Yes. So look the fuck out.
Wait, but this is like really confusing because a lot of us in America were then put in martial arts class.
Yes, I took Taekwondo.
Because in Korea, you learn it in school.
Well, it's like a sport. It's like PE.
It's like a sport. It's basically like gym. Instead of like playing dodgeball, you all learn some karate moves because it's basically just exercise.
So, yeah.
So that's why it's like kind of, that's why like.
Wait, do we all want to be ninja?
No, wait. But this is a really weird reason why when I was growing up and people used to like pick on Asian people, I used to be like, this is really confusing because you make fun of us for all knowing karate, yet you forget that when you want to start a physical altercation with us, because I know how to take you down.
Right.
I can break your sternum in one punch because I know where to hit. We want to do this?
That's really funny. Why do you walk with your hands behind your back?
Oh no. This is triggering for me.
If you know an Asian person over the age of 65, but I don't walk with my hands behind my back. Do you? Don't. That's such an ajashi move. Oh my God. You call me old.
I've realized I do it more and more since my mid 30s.
Oh my God.
And now it's gotten to the point where like I notice I do it and I'm like, and what?
Really?
Yeah.
But why do you do it? Do you think
I don't know. It just feels comfortable.
Like, back pain?
It feels comfortable. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is.
Do other people walk like that?
You know what it is? For me,
I'm trying to think.
For me, this is the train of thought, right? As a guy, you never know what to do with your hands. You never know. Well, hands are awkward,
Pockets.
Yeah, so you put them in your pockets when you're younger. But for some reason, when I got older, there's stuff in my pockets. I need my hands to be more accessible. They just go behind my back.
That's so weird.
I don't know what it is. I hate to be a stereotype, but the older I get, the more comfortable it feels.
Interesting. I wonder if there's like a physiological reason for it.
Like the Asian squatters, like the way our bodies are built.
Proportion or something like that, like counterbalance, like your hands behind your back because it centers or pushes your spine forward.
For me specifically, I've been wondering if I do it because I do stretch my hands behind my back as far as they can go to help align my back.
See, that's what I'm wondering.
And for flexibility, because like as you get older, you realize that like you're not as active. You're kind of like hunched over a computer or something. You know what I mean? So then I do the opposite end to try to like make sure that I'm not getting stiff. So I wonder if that is kind of the case.
I wonder.
But I don't know. It does start to feel very comfortable and natural. I hate that one.
What's the next one? Why? Because it makes you feel old?
Uh-huh. But not as much as I hate this question I'm about to read.
No.
You guys ever go out for an English? Like I quite often order a Chinese.
I'm not touching
that. Do you guys have English restaurants?
I'm not touching that question at all. Nope. There is actually discourse right now on TikTok about British Chinese food. I was like, nope. I don't want to have
There's
anything
another
to do with
discourse? Pray tell, what's that about?
It is a Chinese woman who's watching British people's Chinese food, and she's like, what the fuck is this?
Oh, so the same discourse.
Same discourse. I'm just not part of it.
Yeah.
And nor will I be. I have no intention.
Is she Chinese westernized or China Chinese?
I'm not sure. I mean, she speaks with a Chinese accent, so I don't know if she's lived.
I'm sure there aren't racist comments under that.
I mean, God, I don't even want to look at them. What was the question? Oh, do we ever go out for an English? We don't call it that.
In America, we don't know too much about English food. Therefore, we have a very narrow mindset of it. And the most that we like about it is fish and chips. And you can find that in American restaurants. I don't know of any like...
Well, I know food from like the UK. I mean, I know like, well, my husband is Irish. So like, you know, bangers and mash and like an English breakfast.
Yeah.
And like popovers, I think are that. Oh no, what do they call it? I think it's a popover.
Turnover? No,
that's a French pastry. It's delicious. Or Danish? I don't know. So I do know, but I also know that like the like dish, like the British national dish is chicken tikka masala. So I eat that all the time, but I
Not
consider
British.
that Indian food.
I think of like shepherd's pie.
Delicious.
And like, I don't love it.
You don't like carrots that are cooked. There's cooked carrots in it. I don't think you like peas either. There's also peas in it. So I don't think it's the food itself. I think it's the ingredients in the food that you don't like. Because like it's seasoned ground beef and mashed potatoes. Listen, let me make you shepherd's pie and then you can tell me what you think.
I don't mind it. It's just like I would rather have chicken tikka masala.
Also so delicious. I had that the other day. It was so good.
But we don't have that many English restaurants in America.
But you know, there are a lot of pubs. There's a lot of like British like pub foods. That's maybe why, because I drank a lot. I used to drink a lot. So I used to go to a lot of like pubs in like Santa Monica, like Britannia and King's Head, all these, you know, places that have that. And so, but like, you know, my husband always like on St. Patrick's Day, we'd have a pint and bangers and mash, you know, so or corned beef and cabbage.
I was thinking corned beef and cabbage.
So yes, I don't like seek it out. Just we also live in LA where there's so many cultural foods. So like I don't know that that's
maybe that's also part of it too. I think a lot of in America, English food is just like thought of as like pub food.
Yeah.
And therefore has a different connotation than say like going to a French restaurant.
Or I wouldn't know if I wanted to go like a fancy English dinner where or what I would
That's
eat.
what I'm saying.
Yeah. I know there's like high tea and stuff.
So there's almost like a connotation with English food. Like, I mean, again, we live in America where England was the great evil. So it also kind of makes sense that like maybe we didn't
like prioritize.
Yeah. Or like, you know,
I don't know.
But we do love to go eat non-Asian food. I think that's kind of what the question was, right?
Right. Yes, of course. Why don't you wear shoes in your house or certain buildings? Because that's gross.
Ew.
Why?
What?
Why do you wear your shoes in your house?
Why do you wear your shoes in your bed? Ew.
Do they do that?
Yes.
Are people that do that?
Yes.
That's disgusting.
It's so disgusting. You didn't go to college where people did that all the time?
Oh, yeah, maybe, huh?
Yeah. People used to try to sit on my bed with shoes, and I used to freak out.
That is gross. Like, do you know why you wear shoes? Number one, to protect your feet, but also to not get gross things like doo-doo caca on your feet. Like, that's so gross. And you just track it into your house. No. People are disgusting out there.
I even rinse down my dog's feet before they walk back in.
That's a good call. Do you get your little feet washed before you go in the house with your little toe beans? Dirty toe beans.
It's true, but like if you they now have like ways to show it, but if you watch on YouTube, they have videos where they put these like paints that glow under black light and they'll put them on your shoes, and it's supposed to signify like if you went to a public bathroom and like you're picking up all those like, you know, due to particles, and then they show you where it ends up in your house. And people who wear shoes in their house,
God,
everywhere.
Dude, I went to the gym this morning and I guess they had to shut the water off and I had to go to the bathroom. So I had to run down the street and I had to go to a Jack in the Box bathroom. It was so gnarly. And I was like, oh God. I didn't want to go into the gym with the shoes. I was like, oh God. I was like, but to think about what you're tracking into your homes. And like, also like I have kids when they were babies, they would walk around, touch everything, put everything in their mouths. Like, you guys, please take your shoes off when you go in the house. Please do it for public safety.
Yeah. I mean, we say doo-doo caca, but really
doo-doo
tracking
caca.
E. coli, salmonella.
Ugh.
Like, let's use actual adult words that are going to put fear into your hearts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Why do I get all these questions? Which Asian dish aside from your culture is your favorite?
Oh, it's like a dish outside of Korean culture?
But Asian.
Hmm.
So many?
There's so many. I
So
don't even know
many.
where to start. I don't have a favorite. I can't. Impossible.
I can go through cultures and tell you
what's my favorite dish
Yeah.
from that culture.
And even then, it's like a
toss up between so many.
When I say, I never am like, this is my number one favorite food. I say like top 5 because they're not ranked. I have 5 foods that are like
Right.
number 1.
Right.
And I say 5, it's really like 30.
Like I could get down with some bao right now. Delicious.
Oh my God. Bao, chashu.
Delicious.
Oh my God.
I could easily eat sushi too.
Like twice cooked, like Szechuan pork.
Yep.
Delicious.
Oh, ramen sounds really good also.
Oh, we're going to go to Japan now? Yeah, like some like spicy crispy tuna.
Tempura anything.
Oh my God, tempura anything. Basque cheesecake.
Oh my God, those are so good.
So good.
I love pho, banh mi.
Oh, now we're going Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Banh mi, pho.
I love pho. I love any
spring rolls. Oh my goodness.
with the shrimp and the peanut sauce. So good. What else? There's so many. Oh, Filipino food like chicken adobo.
I've actually never had chicken adobo.
Hey, what?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you've had lumpia?
I've had lumpia.
Delicious. There's the pancit, the noodles, delicious.
Yeah. Jollibee, thank you.
Ooh, I want to eat Jollibee. I'm so hungry right now.
I almost I had to talk myself out of ordering a Jollibee chicken sandwich yesterday because I was like,
I was gonna say, didn't you just recover from like a gout flare up like last week?
And then after that, I had a slight flare up after that, and then now it's gone. So that's the reason why I talked myself out of it.
That's good.
Yeah, we love Asian people. Look, our culture is essentially built on food. So we just love food. We love food.
Is it my turn?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna find a good one. What is your field of view like compared to mine?
Oh my God, that was going to be my next question. It's what's it like having squinty eyes? This one says verbatim.
Like, I don't know. Number one, I can't see through your eyes, so I don't know, but I can see things. So you tell me, like,
Okay. Science says you see through your pupils.
Where are your pupils?
That's the tiny dot in the middle of your eyes.
In the middle. It's right in the middle.
Which means that your eyes could be this small, and if as long as your pupils can see through it, it should theoretically be the same field of view.
Yes.
Now, the one thing that I have noticed with some Asian men, maybe women too, but they curl their eyelashes, is like mine, for instance, my eyelashes grow straight out.
Same. I don't curl mine. I don't bother.
Yeah.
They
So
don't stay that
like,
way.
I have noticed that if I really focus on it, there is a little bit of vignetting that happens.
You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, because here's the thing. We all, typically Asian people have very flat, if bridges of their noses at all. So wouldn't you argue that our peripheral vision is maybe
it's
better because
fuller?
we don't have an obstruction in the middle of our
Oh,
face?
Fair.
Huh. I don't know. How good's your peripheral vision, fucker?
Yeah.
Like, right? Because I can see, like, my field of vision is very broad because...
Yeah. I can see here, right here. Can you? Can you see right
Or
here?
like, I can see way the fuck over here. Can you? Like, way over here. And I can see it with this eye here. Look. Yep, I can still see it because there's no obstruction. We should ask people.
But yeah, science says pupil.
I'm going to start asking people with a nose bridge. Like, it must be so hard to see side to side with such a tall nose bridge. See, I'm lucky. Mine is very flat, close to my head, so I don't have that obstruction.
Yeah.
That's fun. I'm sad.
It's so flat, my glasses have a hard time staying up.
That's actually maybe not one of my favorite things, but yes, it's true.
For years, I've been like, why aren't there glass companies for Asian people?
There was one I saw.
There are now.
There's this like that. Yeah.
And then in America, obviously in Asia, they exist. Why do you look so young? What the hell?
Botox and lip filler for me.
I don't know.
What do they mean? Like we maintain our youthful looks, or that our features look inherently young?
One is slight fetishization.
Well, because babies, when they're born, have flatter, smaller noses. We have flatter, smaller noses. So does that contribute to, is that what they mean? You know what I mean? I don't know.
I read that as in, like, for instance, like, I have no wrinkles on my face. People who are like 10 years younger than me, I've seen with like set in wrinkles, you know, like they have laugh lines. Like up until like 2 years ago, I couldn't even form a wrinkle on my forehead, and I do not get Botox. Like
you keep doing that, you're going to need to.
I know, that's what I'm saying. But like I don't know why, you know, maybe it has to do with,
maybe we don't look young. Maybe everybody else just looks old.
Well, we also eat a lot of collagen in our diet, Asian people. So it could be that.
Oxtail soup. Sounds delicious.
Maybe. I don't know. Also, Asian people tend to be vampiric in nature. We are terrified of the sun.
True.
Whereas in Western culture, we're like, let's go tanning. So I don't know. I don't know. I think it's genes, though.
I'm trying to find one that I don't know. I don't want to do that.
Because it's offensive?
No, it's
boring.
Is it easy for you to tell people from different Asian nationalities apart?
Yes.
Sometimes. It's getting more difficult for me, to be honest.
Some. But again, I think it's that thing where we're used to seeing the slight differences in the homogeny a little bit.
Let's be honest. There's a lot of, what's sort of looking for? Prejudice in particularly East Asian cultures, because I will admit, I can tell the difference between a Chinese person, a Japanese person, and a Korean person.
Sometimes not so much with the Japanese and Korean.
Yeah.
Because there is
colonization
a little bit of,
and
cross-pollination.
But outside of that, and we start talking about like Cambodian and Vietnamese and Thai and Laotian, and you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't know necessarily the differences on those. And that's
some
because
of the Southeastern.
I have a very limited experience with them versus, or they're just not as, I just haven't had as much exposure to people outside of Korean, Japanese, and Chinese people. And maybe that's either a cultural thing, a personal thing, or like an environmental, thing, but awareness or whatever. So like, if you put a Vietnamese person next to a Thai person, I don't know that I would be able to tell the difference.
I feel like Vietnamese people are way more distinctive than some other Southeast Asian.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I feel like that. If you tell me to tell the difference between like a Lao or like,
but don't you think by you saying that it sounds a little like I can tell them apart? Like, like if
but they have like slightly different features. Like Filipino people have a lot of them have Spanish mixed in.
Sure. But I feel like as society and the world kind of progresses, I feel like those lines are getting much blurrier.
I agree.
I'm having a much more difficult time.
But sometimes I feel like a good % of the time I can kind of tell. Am I always right? No.
I don't know.
Nor do I always guess.
Nor do I necessarily care to find out. I don't know. Do I think that that's important for me to know unless I'm engaging with that person and I'm like,
exactly.
I need to.
Yeah. I want to know more about you because I'm getting to know you.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Or like if they divulge it to me because that's something they want me to know. Sure. But like that's not something I don't do that with anybody. Like any type of.
You know what? Maybe it is. Sometimes you hear a name, and that helps.
Of course.
Yeah.
The names will help.
Yeah.
But beyond that, but even then, Like, Ron, what's your last name? Don't say it, but I wouldn't. So again, last names are.
Well, he has a white last name.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That doesn't help me at all.
Yeah. And like my cousin said when he first met Ron, he's like, Ron is not a Korean name.
Yeah,
He's like, what Korean person names their child Ron? Okay. Are you glad you were raised the way you were, or do you think your parents were too hard on you and wish they had been more progressive?
That's a very presumptuous thing to say, that like you don't think that any Asian people can have been progressive, like to assume that they're not.
But in reality, both our parents were a little bit more Korean.
Yeah, but I don't think that means that they're not progressive necessarily.
Yes. I see your point. Yes.
Yeah.
That choice. Yeah.
Right. Read the question again. Do I wish that
Are you glad you were raised the way you were, or do you think your parents were too hard on you and wish they had been more progressive? I do see a little problem in the progressive word. But.
Right. Like, you know, to think that because my parents are Asian, they are so limited in being able to think outside of, you know, whatever. Anyway, whatever standards they think that, I don't know, all Asian people adhere to, I guess. Do I wish I was raised differently? No. I like how I turned out.
That's a tough question.
I have to think about that. I mean, but it depends on like what perspective you're issuing the question, right? If I were a teenager again, or a young, you know, a tween or whatever, would I have wanted my parents to be more progressive in being like, yes, you can stay out later. Yes, you can go to sleepovers. No, you don't have to study as much, whatever. Maybe. But in retrospect, as an adult now, looking back at how I was raised, I have a fond appreciation for the ways in which my parents
raised you?
Yeah. Or like stuck to what they thought was the best. Right. So no, I don't think I wish it was different.
I struggle with that one. I wish I didn't have as much trauma as I did, but at the same time,
But do you think your trauma was because your mother wasn't progressive?
Some.
Maybe, yeah.
My mom specifically, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I guess when I hear the word progressive, when I think specifically of my mom, I wish she had access to mental health so she didn't pass on that generational trauma and anger issues, you know, that she took out on me. So like from those perspectives, like, yeah, I wish I didn't have to have those things, but at the same time, I feel pretty proud of the adult I've become. And sometimes I wonder if I'm the person that I am because of the stuff that I went through.
Or despite.
In spite, you're right. Yeah. Don't ever look at
that's
it
a tough one.
Yeah,
that's a tough one to know, really. But overall, my parents, they were very closed-minded about certain things. No, let me rephrase that.
Cultural.
They just were limited on the things that they were exposed to.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they were necessarily closed off to learning about them. You know what I mean? Like my parents did not know a gay person in their life that they knew was gay. And my mom was just like, I don't understand gay people. How does that work? And I'm like, Mom, it works like anything else works. And she's like, I know, but like, I don't know. It just feels so strange to me. I'm like, it feels strange because you are just you haven't been exposed to it and you don't know anybody, you know, in your life that's that way. And I don't think a person that was limited or not looking to progress would ask that question. You know what I mean? So do I wish they were more progressive? No. Would it have been easier had they known more things? Yes. Right?
I feel like the question is more like, do you wish you were raised more Western than Asian? I feel like that's the question.
I think that's the question. Yeah, I think you might be right.
Did they just use the word progressive, which is a little problematic?
Which they think Western is,
right.
Which is ironic. Have you ever been to?
Yeah. From the perspective of mental health, maybe, yes.
Sure.
But that's a very blanket statement.
Right.
Is
to think that the West is progressive and that, you know, Asia is not. Yeah. Perspective is important. But
I mean, we grew up in America. So yeah, there were times when like you wish that you could have done the stuff that your friends were doing.
Right. But then I look at what happened to a lot of my friends and I'm like, I'm so glad that didn't happen to me. I'm like, how was jail? You know?
Not fun.
Or like, you know, or, you know, some of my friends who didn't make it.
Or like
to this age.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I guess even being raised Asian, in spite of that, I still experience jail. So, whatever.
He's a bad boy, guys. He's a bad boy. My turn?
Mm-hmm.
Do Asians who grow up with chopsticks ever have trouble with a knife and fork? Western style in Western style restaurants. We use spoons in Asian cultures, so that takes one utensil off the proverbial table. A fork is just a chopstick with a pokey thing at the end. So
arguably, chopsticks also have pokey things.
That's true. That's true.
Sometimes I do stab.
I think of the utensils, I would say that chopsticks are probably the most complicated in
but
their
also the
use.
most dynamic.
I agree. I'm not saying I'm not denouncing them. So no, maybe they mean like using a fork and knife together.
I think that person maybe doesn't understand that like Asia has fork and knives. Like when you hear the word Wagyu steak,
right?
Where do you think it comes from? Do you
Right.
think Asian people try to cut a steak with chopsticks? No. When you buy
Ed, don't be so defensive. They're just asking the questions because they're curious.
But I'm saying like we have forks and knives in Asia.
Right. Forks and knives. But I see the perspective, like, because we don't use a fork and knife, the using them together. I actually wonder. I've never asked a person who moved from an Asian country if using a fork and knife was something, because like, for instance, when my dad went to his first Mexican restaurant, he thought that the salsa was soup.
You tried to eat it with a spoon?
Yeah, no, not tried.
Still delicious.
I was like, oh, it's like a spicy gazpacho. He was like, oh, it's so spicy.
Wait, as in no one stopped him?
I think it was just kind of like before. I think my dad was just like on his own. He's like, I'm going to try Mexican food.
Okay.
And so they were just like, okay, he's just going to eat the salsa with a spoon. So you don't know what you don't know. And so you have to try. And so I wonder how much experience my dad had eating with a fork and knife growing up. I've never asked him that. I'm going to ask, and I'm going to come back next week.
My mom didn't use a knife because she had polio in one arm.
Oh.
So it was like a little... So she experienced polio,
has limited
so
mobility.
she has limited mobility in her one arm. So like she physically can't hold something down and use a knife. So
what I'm saying is like, I am imagining my mom like being like a young person in Korea, having had no experience with a fork and knife, because you don't eat it with a fork and knife.
I mean, in one defense, I would say like the majority of even people in America that I've seen use fork and knives don't do it by like etiquette standards. So arguably.
But what I'm saying is like my mom probably would have never had a ton of experience sitting, because the way Korean cuisine is laid out, it's in small, like bite-sized pieces, right? So to sit down for your first steak dinner ever, you don't get a big slab of meat at a Korean dinner. And then to sit down with it and be like, you guys gonna cut that? Or like, well, you're just gonna give me the slab of meat, and to be given a fork, and I don't know. I first thought that question was very flippant and, probably sarcastic. But now that I think about it, even if it was flippant and sarcastic, I wonder I wonder what my parents' first experience with a fork and knife was. I've never asked them that. And I actually absolutely intend to, because I don't know.
Yeah, but like, I guess we're approaching this question from a different perspective, because you're thinking from the perspective of your parents. I'm thinking now. You go to Korea, there's like Italian steak restaurants everywhere, and they don't give you chopsticks. You use fork and knife.
Right. Well, but that's because the world has become,
universal.
More, yeah, right. And there are Western people who live in the West or whatever, who can very easily use chopsticks because they've had exposure to it. But what I'm thinking is like, before that exposure, your first time using chopsticks is like, people ask me all the time, can you do a tutorial on how to use chopsticks? And I'm like, I mean, I guess, but like, I feel like it's, with no exposure to it, you just wouldn't inherently know. If somebody was like, here are 2 sticks, eat with them, you'd be like, right.
Use them like tongs, yeah.
Right. So
like salad.
I wonder if it was the same with a fork and knife.
I don't know. My mom made me essentially take like an etiquette class when I was young, so I knew how to like.
That's unexpected.
It wasn't like a formal etiquette class, but kind of.
Interesting.
I'm gonna read this one.
That's the point.
Do you, yeah, but I'm saying the word you told me not to use, I feel like exudes through this question. Do you feel intimidated by the size of people when visiting non-Asian countries? Just the other day, I saw a group of Japanese tourists on a busy street, and they looked so small in comparison to people stomping around them like a bunch of rabbits lost in the middle of an elephant herd. That's a weird thing to read for.
I'm 5'8". I can't relate. I don't know.
6'1" man.
Yeah,
so.
but I don't know. I'm 5'8". Do you know that Koreans, I don't remember what the statistic is, but have grown the most in this last generation? So I guess it's an unnecessary question. I don't know. I've never been one of those tiny little Asian women. So I'm one of the stompers, not the stompies. So, which is funny because I was born in the year of the rabbit, but still no a rabbit. No, I'm no rabbit.
I was 6'1" by the time I was 16. So I do not understand that question.
Yeah.
And in fact, all of my friends, at one point, I was the shortest out of my Korean friends at 6'1".
Yeah.
My next best friend was 6'2", and the other best friend was 6'4" at 16. So
yeah. What was the question? Do we feel weird about it?
No, but I do feel weird about asking questions like this, though.
No. Oh, I mean, I'm saying, like, what was the question?
Do we feel intimidated?
Oh, intimidated
by the size of all the non?
Oh my God, you're so big. Like, no. I mean,
this question feels a little like they think that they're Godzilla or something, but no. Korean. In fact, my mom tells me all the time, she's like, "You're not tall for a Korean anymore," and I'm like, "Yes, I am."
Serious question. This actually is a serious question. Why don't you like us Black people? Non-American Asians always gave me the cold shoulder. American Asians were cool, and I often hang out with them. Are they just not used to us?
Partially.
Sad to say, but I know that there's anti-Blackness very much so in a lot of Asian American communities. And obviously, unfortunately, anti-Blackness is global. And I think like
it's a very long historical answer.
Yeah.
Some of it has to do with not being used to it. Okay, so colonization happened throughout the whole world when white colonizers took over Asia, Africa, all the other continents. And with that came the belief of anti-Blackness that was instilled upon all of these communities. Now, once those colonizations ended, you were left with this homogenized community where they don't know anyone who don't look like they're all white, all Asian, all South Asian, whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden you fast forward to having technology and Western media, because again, controlled by whiteness, is pushing out this message of that Black communities are gangsters, do this, they do that. And then that media gets pushed out into the world in the form of movies and TV shows. And now you take this homogenized community who has learned anti-Blackness through colonization and stuff like that, on top of the fact that it's then mixed with people who are learning about these races for the first time through fictionized television that is controlled by white media. And then you have this biased look. So when they meet Black people for the first time, they're having to reconcile what they have been essentially brainwashed into thinking versus then trying to figure out what that means when they meet you and they're like, but you're not any of these things. Which is the reason why you get a lot of people from Asia who are having to go through that discovery, and Asian Americans who grew up with that and know that those are things that are essentially propaganda, mind washing, to keep upholding this idea of, and instead of using the WS word, I'm going to say anti-Blackness, because one is, they're hand in hand, and they push this anti-Blackness, then it's basically global propaganda. So then people are trying to, come to those terms, and instead of just being hateful, they may just not understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think that's like the short end of it.
Yeah. I mean, I have nothing to contribute. That was very concise. A lot of people are just conditioned to believe that Black people are whatever the conditioner wants you to believe they are.
Yep.
And, like my grandma, the only Black people she had ever seen were American soldiers in Korea. And to her, they were all part of the same group. And then when she came to America, all she knew about Black people was, like you said, what she had seen on TV, what people had told her. And so she was very distrusting of Black people. And I was like, how many Black people are just like everybody else? Like, I go to school with Black kids, like, and she was just like, oh no, they're very dangerous. I'm like, they're not. This is just what people wanted you to believe. But what else did she know? You know what I mean? She's just this like, country girl from, uneducated, and is told by everybody in power what to believe. My God is better. My people are better. My guns are better. So she's like, okay, well, all of these things are better. So I better side with the better side.
Yep. All of that contributes to this idea of this bottom of the barrel mentality.
Right.
Which then historically inside of the US specifically created this thing where the white society was like, hey, look, we don't want anything to do in Black communities, but we also don't want Black people to have money and power.
Right.
Oh, you know what?
Throw the
These
Asians
Asian people, we'll give you approval for your business loan, but you can only do it in these Black communities. Right. And then that started that rift between that power struggle within a minority community where we should have been together,
right,
because of control from powers that were outside of our communities. And then now, like, for instance, my mom, when I was younger, she worked in a wig shop in a Black community. And even though everyone loved her because she would cut and style their hair, she learned about Black hair so that she could, do whatever. But then came the 1 or 2 times that the shop was then held up at gunpoint. And all of a sudden, all the stuff that she knew from media was being upheld.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, violence. And it wasn't until like that I had to get really angry at my mom because she said something slightly racist about a Black friend. And I was like, that's fucking racist.
I mean, yeah.
And then she had to unlearn all those things and be like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I interact with people that I consider friends all the time. And I allowed this one thing, and you know what I mean? The fear control. And that's just what happens.
And I honestly, I hate to admit this, but like, if we're going to just be honest and have an honest conversation, I didn't even know what the term for Black people was in Korean. I only knew the slur. Growing up, I only knew the slur. I thought that was what it was called. And I did not know until much later. And it's because, like people like my grandmother, that was what she knew. And that was how she spoke about them. And once I found that out, I was fucking horrified. I was horrified. I didn't know that was the word that I was using. And I understand now it's because this is what she was conditioned to believe, and then reinforced by the language, in which she was taught to express, her thoughts. I mean, it was just like, I was like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
I've been saying what,
Yeah, that does remind me. My mom did grow in that sense where she had that one thought when I was like 12, and then it even further moved along to like evolving into then teaching the Black people that she interacted with, like, hey, if you hear a Korean person say this word, they're talking negatively about you. To the point where she was now like, I've been teaching everyone, like, hey, don't let people talk negatively about you.
Do you have a light one for the end?
By light, do you mean offensive? God. No, I'm just kidding.
You love being offended.
There's a lot to be offended about.
I know.
Is there a polite way to ask, what kind of Asian are you?
I've answered this question so many times, but I'm happy to do it again.
I feel like short answer is no.
No. I mean, I always wonder, like, why do you want to know? What do you want to know? And why is that important to what we're talking about? Or is it important at all? And also, like, if I tell you, this is how I see it. A lot of times when people ask you what your ethnicity is, number one, they don't know how to ask the question, which would be, oh, do you mind if I ask you what your ethnicity is? Fine. It's often, what are you? That in and of itself is just like such an offensive question. Mm-hmm. What are you? Where are you from? I'm a woman and I'm from Los Angeles. The fuck do you want to know? so what is your ethnicity? I often think like when you ask me that, before I even answer, I want to know what my answer tells you or think will inform you of if I tell you. If I tell you that I'm Korean, is it because it's usually never about me. It's never about getting to know me better. It's often in an attempt to tell me something anecdotal about being Korean or something. Oh, I took Taekwondo, or oh, I love Korean barbecue. Do you watch K-dramas? It's just this like springboard to go into something about them and about being Korean, which is fine. If you want to have a conversation about things that you love that are Korean, we can have that conversation. But if you're asking me just so you can have that conversation, that to me is weird. That's weird to me. And I want to, when people ask me like, what is your ethnicity? It's you. I don't know. It often is not. It has nothing to do with me.
I would say it takes usually it's about 1% of those questions being asked where it's actually relatable to the conversation we're having.
Right.
And outside of that, not only what Susie said about how it's this weird narcissistic way of then talking about yourself. So, and people are always they're trying to relate to you. It's but the idea that you think the only way to relate to me is the difference that you saw, I don't think you're understanding that nuance.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're trying to relate to me by first realizing that person is different from me.
Right.
And that's a really weird way to be I'm trying to get to know you. No.
Right. I'm trying to commune with you. It's by telling me that you immediately realize that I'm not the same as you. It doesn't if you wanted to get to know me, ask me about me.
Me.
What are your hobbies?
Yeah. What do you like to eat? Do you like pizza?
Right.
Instead of being do you like bulgogi? I don't know. Did you just assume I was Korean? I mean, I am, but
or just ask me what my favorite food is if you want to know more about me. I think that's such a simple way. And it's also, eventually, for most people, their ethnicity or their whatever it is they want you to know about them, it's going to come out. I talk about being Korean all the time. Yeah. I talk about when people are oh, what's a great restaurant? I'm like, oh, okay, I'm Korean. Let me tell you my favorite Korean restaurants. It just comes out. So you don't even have to, it doesn't take long. It's almost immediate. It's one of the first things. And maybe that has a little bit to do with the fact that I know that they know that I know that we're different. So
and that's annoying.
I'm just gonna beat them to the punch, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that's what it is, but now that I think about it, it could very easily be. But I don't know. It's just a question I don't really even ask people. I don't ask people their ethnicities very often. No, it usually just comes out.
And honestly, it's only when it's part of the conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Oh, by the way, are you Vietnamese? Oh, okay, you are. Okay, cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're talking about something, whatever. Then it makes sense. But when strangers just come up to you.
But also, I feel like it happens almost, not exclusively, but predominantly to Asian people, unless you have a non-American accent. You know what I mean? Nobody goes up to white people and they're like, oh, what ethnicity are you? It just doesn't happen that often. Or even, I don't think anybody's ever been to my husband, I ask him, do people ever ask you your ethnicity? Do people say oh, what's your ethnicity? Oh, I'm Irish, English, and whatever. He's like, no, never. But I get asked that all the time, So it's if you don't ask that of other people, then maybe you should consider why you're asking that of me. That's just something that I think a little introspection would go very far.
Yeah. I agree. But I like Susie said, what is your purpose of asking? Is it to validate that you knew you were right?
I knew it.
I feel like that's what it was.
And
then my question to you is why do you play that game?
Right. The other day, maybe a couple months ago, I was at the gym and I was standing there with these two white women who are my friends. And then this older white guy comes up and we were talking about Charlie's Angels. And they're like, who was your favorite Charlie's Angel? I said, oh, Jacqueline Smith was my favorite Charlie's Angel. She was just so gorgeous and she was so smart and she was the perfect balance of beauty and brains and whatever. And he goes, I didn't think you were old enough to know the original, Charlie's Angels. And I was like, yeah, no, of course.
Sounds like a compliment.
Right.
Followed up with?
But I would have thought that Lucy Liu would have been your favorite angel.
There it is.
And I was like, why? Why would you think that? He's like, oh, because, and I'm like, because what? And he's like, yeah, I was like, listen, I know what you're trying to say. Like, hey, isn't it great that there was an Asian Charlie's Angel, which I think might be what you're trying to say or not. I don't know. But I don't always have to think the worst in everybody. I think he was just saying, like, I would imagine that an Asian person would identify the most with an Asian character, which fine. I understand that, but like, I was made to feel in that moment, like, I know, I'm Asian. I know, I'm Asian. I know what I look like. I know what, your perception of me. You don't have to tell me. And I think that's another thing. A lot of times when people bring that up, it's their way of telling me that they recognize that I'm not white. It's like, I don't need you to do that.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I know. It's painfully obvious that I'm not white, and it's okay. It's fine. I've lived as a non-white person my whole life. I don't need you to express that to me. Like, it's totally unnecessary. And I think I really do. The guy, he's a really like nice guy. I don't think he's an asshole. I think he's just kind of like, I'm going to say something that I think is going to help you know that I know that Lucy Liu is also Asian, like I know you're Asian. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. People don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. I have a hard time not hearing stuff like that and not thinking, so you think I relate to that person because she's Asian and I'm Asian. Are you trying to say you only relate to people who are white because you're white? Because that's not how the rest of us live.
Right. Well,
you know what I mean? And that is a bit problematic. It's not problematic. I get it. You relate to people who look like you, but like, if that's how you go around
right,
experiencing the world, I feel like that is a little problematic.
Right. Well, like me relating to Jacqueline Smith is because she's beautiful and powerful.
Right.
I am also beautiful and powerful.
Right.
So why would I not relate to
the race? That's what I'm saying. There's like so many things I guess that's the point of what we're trying to say.
Right.
There's so many more things to relate with than the race
right.
of the person.
Right.
They're a person first.
Right. Like
I
have so many things in my life. There are so many things that I can relate to with other people.
And I don't think people who get defensive about asking this question realize that if like those questions disappear, there would be less separation and more understanding, because you wouldn't immediately look at someone and be like, oh, I don't understand them. They're different than me. You would look at someone and be like, gee, I wonder if they like the same things that I like. Right. We're both at a pizza. What your favorite's pepperoni too?
Right.
It's weird to be at a pizza place and be like, what's your favorite Korean dish?
Right. Or we're not one dimensional. We have multiple layers and degrees of our humanity, and it doesn't just exist inside of our ethnicity. Now, obviously, though, for us, our ethnicity is a big part of who we are. But like I was saying, it will come out. It will happen.
And
I will take you to go eat, Korean food.
Yeah. And it's a big part of us, but it's a big part of us and the way we experience the world. You know what I mean? And I feel like sometimes that like has nothing to do with you.
Right. Right.
If we want to talk about our experience, then
you'll hear about it.
Ask about that.
Especially if you're with one of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. We'll talk about it if we want to, but like, no.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's very intrusive. And I feel like the best way I can get, he looks so happy and comfortable. He's like legit smiling.
Yeah, he loves me very much.
I don't even remember what I was saying, but yeah, please stop doing that. Please stop asking people what kind of Asian are you?
Or at least be a little bit more, be less obvious about it, like
by not asking.
Or like, what's your favorite thing to cook? Maybe that'll tell me. Or like, what's your favorite television show? Maybe that'll tell me, but it'll also tell you a lot of other things.
Yeah, none of that will tell you that I'm Korean, because my favorite thing to eat is fried chicken.
True. My
favorite show to watch are trashy American TV shows. Recently, also K-dramas. So, okay, maybe that part.
See?
But
I think because I'm so hyper aware that I'm not hyper aware, but I'm so aware that I'm not white that I almost sometimes try to compensate and make the other person more comfortable by saying it first. You know what I mean? Like, so that they don't have to say it, because then, I don't know. So I cut that out. I don't even know what I'm saying. I was
about to be like, I'm way more argumentative. I will purposely not say it to see if you're going to be.
You're a petty bitch.
I am a petty
Anyway, that was fun. It was a little infuriating at times, but fun overall.
Yeah, that made me kind of feel weird inside.
Why?
I don't know.
Which part?
It was like such a
Roller coaster.
yeah,
It
was just like all over the place.
But it's a good conversation to have. I think a lot of people have questions, and I think being able to answer them in a non-confrontational way can be helpful to some.
That's hard.
I know. I was being totally passive aggressive when I said that.
Yeah, obviously. Which may not make sense for you because those parts were cut out of the show. But I have a hard time not being confrontational sometimes.
I know.
Because
you're conditioned.
I conditioned myself to be this way.
I know.
I conditioned myself to be this way.
I know.
Because when you're being told that you're sensitive and you're Asian, you're being picked on for it, you
develop a fucking facade,
Yeah.
a veneer, everything. I know.
because as those of you that watch the show, deep down inside, I'm really, really sensitive.
Right. But I think part of these conversations aren't for just other people. It's for us to be like, okay, I know I'm super guarded about these things. And I know that when I talk about them in a way that can be really aggressive and really confrontational. And I do it because I need to protect myself. But
it's not always the most conducive.
Yeah, it's not constructive to always be defensive because what ends up happening is that you just turn off everybody who's trying to learn something or, take the ability for somebody to learn away because then their fucking, defenses go up and now nobody's talking, So I think it's important for us for me personally, to try, and I've been very vigilant in my life to try to be less defensive because as I always say about myself, the same applies to everybody else. You don't know what you don't know. And you're not going to learn it if somebody's screaming at you about it. Or at least I'm not going to. I'm instantly like, fuck you. I don't want to learn a fucking thing you have to say to me.
Yeah.
But
I don't get defensive as much as on the offense, I feel like. From a defensive
But your
purpose,
offense is defensiveness. Right? You do it first. If you're
oh yeah, I see your point. Yeah.
That is your protection is by going in first.
Yeah.
So, we all have our things.
Well, because my intent as a child used to be to shut it down, not to have a conversation. So
right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. See?
Whereas now I'm trying to have a conversation, so to try to shut people down.
Look at us progressing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I never want to move from this position.
Oh my God. That's the reason why I have a hard time waking out of bed. Sometimes I tell Ron and I'm like, sorry, I woke up late today because, and do you see these photos? I have evidence as the reason why.
The baby's so sleepy. Anyway.
Sometimes like around the time I have to get up, Archie will crawl out from under the covers. And like the other day, he then put his head here and then slept. And I was like, well, I'm not moving. And then another 40 minutes passed.
He's so sleepy. Anyway.
On that note, thank you for joining us. If you would like to help keep this podcast sustainable, we bring you any joy or, I don't know, some learning or
information,
coping, therapy,
a little healing maybe, or, a good
laugh.
retort to say to somebody who's saying something shitty to you.
Yeah. Or just like get your aggression out through me, whatever it may be. Feel free to, join our Patreon and help to keep this podcast sustainable, as I stated before. Otherwise, you can find us on our socials.
You can find me at Sujio1 on TikTok and Instagram.
I'm at Etch-a-Sketch with a J. You can find the podcast at One in the Shibal. That's SHIBAL. Also, this little guy and his brother are at Archie and Colt. Otherwise, if you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Otherwise, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, and ring the notification bell.
Ding-a-ling.
Ding. Ding. And on that note, thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next one.
I can only do it with one hand.
Okay, bye.
He is completely just dead weight. There's just nothing. There's offering no resistance to me whatsoever.